Joel Klatt joining us now to talk about his latest mock draft you can find on foxsports.com. Joel, this is one of many visits that we're going to do as we lead up to the draft. I want to start with the number one pick, your number one pick, Cam Ward. I watched his pro day. There was no defensive players on the field, so I had a hard time gauging what was so electric about him. But you've grinded more Miami tape than I have, and you liked him even before he was at Miami. What makes him, in your mind, an obvious number one pick?
Well, I don't know if he's an obvious number one pick. I'll start with that. You know, I placed him there based on some of the things that I've heard throughout the process. I really love the fact that he's unafraid to make throws down the field. And in this day and age, in particular with the offensive-oriented whistle that is applied in the National Football League, you got to have a guy that's willing to do that. And he really is incredibly confident. And he's a bit of a gunslinger. I love his mentality. Bet on himself going to Miami, a bit of a winding road, junior college, Washington State, then Miami, and in every single situation he's played well. One of the things that I like both about Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, my two top quarterbacks, is that these guys weren't at factories that had great players in front of them all the time. Now, maybe Ward did at Miami to some degree, but they operated in college behind offensive lines and with other players on their offense that weren't as staggeringly better than their opposition as most top-end quarterbacks in the NFL draft that we see year in and year out. So these guys, both of them, are going to, I think, experience in the NFL very similar things to what they experienced at times during their college career. And I think that'll help them because they're used to playing behind, porous offensive lines. And I'm speaking more about the Washington State days for Cam Ward. And they both were able to produce at a high level. So it's something that I like about both of these guys. And I just think when I look at Tennessee, I hear kind of what I'm hearing. I think that Cam is a good fit for them.
Joel, you got Travis Hunter going to Cleveland at number 2. Now, can they afford not to draft a quarterback, though?
Probably not, and truth be told, this mock that I did, Brew, was before the Russell Wilson news. So I'll be coming out with a different one. I've got a top 50 list, my top 50 prospects coming out on Monday. I'll have another mock draft before the draft. This was more in lines with, I don't know if you can pass Travis Hunter up. I'm a huge believer that this guy is going to be one of the best players in the National Football League. I think he could be a top 5, if not top 3 corner in the league, and I think that he can be one of the most dynamic playmakers on offense. I do think he's going to play both ways. I think that there is a path to play both ways that doesn't ruin him physically, and that's why I put him up there with the Browns. But truth be told, with what's gone on in free agency and where quarterbacks have landed, I do think probably when I go to my next mock that I'll have Shedeur with Cleveland. But man, it's going to be difficult to pass on Travis Hunter. I think he's that good.
All right, well, let's stick with Shedeur then, whether it's Cleveland or the Giants. You seem to be, I think, higher than the consensus on Shedeur. And so I'm curious, what is it? Everybody knows how tough he is, but that's a trait you hope your quarterback doesn't actually need as much as some of the other ones. What do you?
Well, he will if he gets drafted high.
Yeah, well, sure. Yeah, that's a great point. So what is it that you like the most about Shedeur, and what is it that makes you the most confident that he can work as an NFL quarterback?
I think when I watch his game, he displays great traits in multiple areas. Okay, and let me break that down. So when he's on time, he's on target. And when they do provide him some protection, he's surgical in his ability to throw the ball with accuracy, the timing with which he uses, the ability to dissect coverage from the pocket and really control the game from the pocket. And I know it was rare, but there were times and there were weeks where their offensive line did play well. And he was incredible in those games. As a surgeon from the pocket, he can control the game from that point. And then there were times when they did not control the line of scrimmage. And what did he have to do? He had to become a magician. And he's got this equal parts surgeon and magician, where he can go out there and really hurt you from the pocket, on time, on target, and then all of a sudden he can buy himself time, eyes downfield, almost Fran Tarkenton-esque, where he's not having to be a threat with his legs. He's buying enough time in order to hurt you with his mind and his arm. See, this is what I think gets lost, is that people think to themselves like, well, he's not going to be able to run around. Well, he doesn't run around. He buys time. There's a huge difference. Ben Roethlisberger was not a fast player, but he bought himself enough time to be a threat outside of the pocket. That's similar to what Shedeur Sanders does, and I'm just not going to bet against this guy. I'm an alum of the University of Colorado. That does not mean I'm biased towards him. It means that I'm uniquely aware of the position that program was in before he arrived. The reason they won 9 games and they were top 25 was not because of their head coach, although he was a big factor. It was because of their quarterback. Shedeur Sanders turned them from a 1-win team into a 9-win team and a top 25 player or a top 25 program. And that's not something that we should look over, because he's going to be asked to do the exact same thing with the poorest franchise in the NFL level. And I think that he can do that.
So I just want to follow up, because there are only 3 teams, well, 4 actually, that definitively have to get a quarterback either in free agency or the draft left. The first 3 teams drafting, in the Titans and the Browns, the Giants not so much anymore. They don't have to. They could. And then after that, it's the Steelers who are all the way at 21. So if Shedeur doesn't go in those top 3, he could fall quite a bit. Do you think that ultimately actually could be good for him, even though it wouldn't be good for him financially in the short term?
Well, you look at most of the guys that do fall, it benefits them. Not everyone, that's not a firm and fast rule. But I would argue that fit is better than draft position for a quarterback. And I think you guys would probably agree with that. I'm sure, Nick, you would agree with that as well. So like, if you can tell me that you're going to go to a more stable organization that doesn't have to have you play at a high level right away, that is more beneficial for any quarterback. So let's just place that on Shedeur. Would he like to get drafted high? Yes, obviously. There's a lot of things that would be advantageous about that, in particular from a financial perspective. However, for the longevity of his career and for the success of his career moving forward, would it maybe be better if he slid to an organization that was really good in the front office, knew what they were doing as far as roster construction, and could give him some semblance of structure to where he didn't have to be the reason why they were good right away? The answer is yes.
Day after the draft, Joel, everybody meets, they have a press conference, and the head coach usually says, you know what? I think we got the best player in the draft. And everyone's like, yeah, maybe. But oftentimes it feels a little bit like lip service. Abdul Carter to the Patriots at 4. I feel if Mike Vrabel got in front of the media and said we got the best player in the draft, I think he might be right, and he's going at 4. Abdul had a tweet that said, I'm the best player, I should be 1. How do you expect him? Do you think he's the best player in the draft, and what do you think his impact will be right away?
He's a great player. I believe that the best player is Travis Hunter. That'll be in my top 50 list. Little tease to Monday. Travis will be number 1. Abdul is phenomenal. Abdul is a phenomenal player. Here's what I love about Abdul Carter is that he's versatile. And in this day and age in our sport, I believe that defenders have to be hybrid because offenses are hybrid. They're rolling out multiple different personnel groups that in and of themselves can act as an accordion and get big and get small and spread out and shrink down. And they can do all sorts of things on the offensive side of the football. So what you need on defense to be great is hybrid style defenders. And that's exactly what Abdul Carter is. He can line up as a linebacker. He can line up as an edge player. They've rushed him from the interior. He did both at Penn State. From the moment he got on that campus, they were incredibly high on him. In fact, I'll just tell you a quick story. So before his very first game as a true freshman, we had them in their opener. We were on the road. They were at Purdue, I believe it was. Yeah, Purdue. And I was with James Franklin, and he was raving about Abdul Carter on the field, and we were watching him pregame. And I was like, yeah, man, this guy is very good. And he was already in number 11, which, as you know, is a big deal there at Penn State. And then he gets in for his very first snap. I believe it was at the end of the first quarter, and I had built him up already and said, hey, can't wait to see this number 11. And in his very first snap, he got a targeting and was ejected in his very first snap of his college career. And I just thought to myself, we'll see how this kid reacts. And it never deterred him. And that could have, being highly rated and then coming out and getting ejected in your first game. And he turned into a dominant force. And he was a force, by the way, when they played Notre Dame in the playoff, even though they didn't win that game. He had 7 quarterback pressures with basically 1 arm. So he's a game wrecker. I believe that he could, I don't want to put this pressure on him, but he could impact the game similarly to his Penn State brethren, Micah Parsons. I think he's that good.
Joel, I hate to bring the mood down by bringing up the Cowboys, but you had them taking Ashton Jeanty at 12.
Yeah.
It's not unusual for rookie running backs to be, like, immediately great, if they're a great running back. Could you see him doing that and immediately becoming one of the top backs in the league?
Yes, I do want to see some growth. Well, okay, let me back up. Brew, that's a really good question. Normally, the guys that are able to do that are not guys that you just hand the football to, okay? Right? Wouldn't you agree, right? McCaffrey was good early. Gibbs was good early. Bijan was really good early. That doesn't mean that they don't have to be great runners, and Jeanty certainly is. And I'm not saying that Jeanty doesn't catch the ball well out of the backfield. It's just not something that they asked him to do a lot of last year. Now, I've gotten in trouble for this take, but I believe that was a selfish – I mean, I shouldn't even say it that way. That was a purposeful – orientation of his touches last year. Boise State wanted to win the Heisman Trophy with Ashton Jeanty. I think that's very clear. The only way you do that at the Group of 5 level is you threaten Barry Sanders' rushing mark, right? Well, you don't threaten Barry Sanders' rushing mark if 5 of your 30 touches are catches. You don't do that.
Right.
You need all 30 of those touches to be rushes so that you can threaten that mark. And I've gotten some wink, like, yes, that's exactly what happened. That's something that I have said elsewhere in the past. So it doesn't mean that he doesn't catch it well. It's just that he wasn't asked to do that. And in my estimation, to be a dynamic threat right away as a rookie, you have to be able to catch it dynamically out of the backfield. And all the guys that have been impactful early in their careers in the last few years can do that. So the question remains then, like, will Jeanty be able to do that?
Okay, excellent, Joel. We're going to have you on every Thursday. Before we let you go, tell us.
That was it, though. That was all I had.
That was it.
I don't know. Like,
tell us when is your next mock coming out? When's the top 50 coming out?
Yeah, so Top 50 is coming out on Monday. Joel Klatt Show. You can find it where you get podcasts and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And then the mock will be closer to the draft. And then I'll have some other lists that are coming out as well. Top running backs, tight ends, wide receivers, so on and so forth.
Awesome.
And then
Great.
Clearly, we've got to talk at length about, like, what offensive tackles might be available with the 31st pick.
I asked Joel that off the air because I knew it wasn't good for the audience. I don't try to program just for myself. Wilds asked a Patriots question nobody cared about.
I don't know if you caught the Super Bowl, but it was a disaster.
Oh, okay.
It was
all right,
manhandled up front.
Joel, next, I also had a question about the running backs in the second round and D tackles in the third round. I've got the Chiefs draft board committed to memory, so we can discuss all of it. Yeah.
Joel,
we can discuss that. I can't wait. I'll see you guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, Joel.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.